Hello internet, it's me again, Vickie's Voice, blog number 3, I believe. After such a huge break in updates, I figured I would surprise everyone by doing 2 in quick succession, because I'm like that. Now today we are going to be talking about breathing and making sounds, and I really should be doing this standing up, but as you can see I'm sitting down just for demonstration purposes because there's not really any place here where I can put the webcam and be stood up and have everything in frame. So I'm just going to do it sitting down. Yes. Basic news before we begin. Trailer is still on hold. I now have the task of also doing the trailer for Sarah Goodwin's other book, Ink. So trailers for Ink and Me and Mine will soon be available on YouTube. God only knows when they're going to happen, though. Just busyness has happened, but hey-ho. Yeah, I think that's really it in terms of news, because not very much has happened since the last one. I'm going to try getting in contact with people and just seeing what I can have to talk about on this. Get in contact with some professional voice actors, see what they have to say. But I don't want to say too much now because I don't know how much of that is actually going to happen. So for now, let's just move on. Last week we talked about vocal warm-ups, tongue twisters. She Sells Seashells was one I didn't mention, but I thought it was rather obvious. And the good old favourite, I like New York, unique New York, I like unique New York. And we've talked about that and how it's very important to warm up your voice and get your mouth around certain words before you start. And now I want to talk to you about making sounds, pretty much. Breathing and how the voice works as muscle. Because once you understand how you make sounds, it's much easier to choose which sounds to make. I'm just going to move the mic away from my mouth a bit because I'm getting some sound levels. I'm maxing out a bit. That should work. Okay, so yes, we'll start off with breathing. Any performer of any kind will tell you that it's very important to breathe from the diaphragm. Now, I'm going to have to move, so bear with me. I apologise in advance for the awful lighting, but this is really the only angle I can get. So when you're breathing, you must breathe from the diaphragm, which, if you find your belly button, mine's about there, the diaphragm is just above it. If you push in, you can feel the bottom of your rib cage, and it's just slightly tense. And to breathe from the diaphragm, you have to push that out as you breathe in, and it's something that's quite difficult to get the hang of to start with, but once you get the hang of it, you do it without even thinking about it. Simple case of breathing in and breathing out. And what actually happens, what people think happens when you breathe in and out is that when you breathe in, that happens, and when you breathe out, that happens. And that's not quite true, because a lot of people only use about a quarter of their lung capacity, because your lungs actually go from there to about there, I think. And a lot of people will only breathe and only fill the top parts of their lungs because that's the easiest part to fill. But when you're breathing properly, to bring in a lot of breath, you can fill your entire lungs, and you have to breathe very slowly, and it's quite a trick to master, but once you've got it, you can hold your breath forever and win every competition with every immature relative you have. It's a lot of fun. So breathing in from the diaphragm, you have to it's all about pulling the air down into your stomach. And the breathing out, you can feel the compression very slowly. And that's the sort of thing that I can't really help you with, because I'm not really here. I'm a recording on a camera. So you're going to have to work that yourself. But now I've shown you what to look for, you should hopefully be able to find it in yourself. And once you've managed breathing, you can learn how to make sounds. Now, some of you may know, and this is where I showcase my flimsy grasp on biology, but sounds are made when air is pushed through the vocal cords, and through the shaping of the mouth, you shape the air that comes out and you make a sound. So ah is one shape and oh is another one, and that's why we talk the way we do. Certain other details are things like if you want to speak in a very loud voice, if you want to project your voice, then you tend to make big Brian blessed mouths, because a louder noise tends to come from a larger shape, I guess. Think of musical instruments. You will get things like piccolos, say, and penny whistles, which don't make quite the same huge sound as, say, a saxophone. And I suppose that's because of, like I said, the air needs more space to reverberate to make a bigger sound. So big faces make big sounds, and small faces tend to make quiet sounds. It's very interesting. When you whisper, you become very subdued, and you have to focus very hard on what you're doing. And you'll find that your lips are moving much smaller. And I'm exaggerating, obviously, so you can see me on the camera, but some interesting things to try out. Another interesting thing to try out in terms of sounds is low sounds and high sounds, because you do it without noticing, but a low sound is made at the back of the throat and a high sound is made much more towards the front of the mouth. You push more air through your nose. So a low sound is made, and if you make a very low voice, then you can feel your diaphragm pushing out, or you should be able to. You should be able to feel the air go down into your diaphragm and everything move back and down slightly because you are being very low. Whereas if you're being very high-pitched, you can almost feel your tongue move towards the back of your mouth, pushing more air up through your nose. So that's a little how sound works for you there. Once you've got how sound works, holding notes and holding sounds is a very good way to start warming yourself up and to familiarize yourself with how your voice works. Because if you're going to use your voice as a tool, like I hope to, then you've got to practice with it. And breathing in from the diaphragm, if you want to practice holding an R, say, it's a good indicator of how strong your breathing is, and therefore how long you can talk for, and how reliable your voice is. So we can try that now. Breathing in from the diaphragm. This is where I go horribly wrong and embarrass myself, I'm sure, but bear with me. Not one of my best. I think I've held it for longer, and that was a bit wavery. I'm going to blame being on film for that, but there we go. Yes, so remember, when you are breathing, when you are talking, it's very best to either be sat up straight or be standing up, because that way you're not compressing your lungs and you have more space to breathe and more space to be. Once you've mastered the basic techniques of breathing and feeling how your throat makes certain sounds, you can try experimenting with different voices. Experimenting with voices is something that I've been doing for years, probably before I was even familiar with my voice, and I think doing it the other way around would probably help people who aren't as naturally inclined towards performance. For instance, there are certain voices which you can do down here, which you can only really understand how you're going to do once you've learned how to breathe from the diaphragm.
And then there are certain voices which you have to do up here, which are much higher pitched, and which you can do without thinking about it, but I feel it would really help to understand how breathing affects
The voice, because that particular voice, both those voices, in fact, involved breathing out on particular words, and singers will have particular familiarity with this, some actors as well. Breathing has to happen at certain points during a dialogue so that it sounds natural. when you are talking naturally, you tend to breathe at either the beginning or the end of a sentence so that you get halfway through, so you don't go halfway through and just... And then I said that it was this. You have to breathe quietly to breathe naturally. And my housemate's just come home, so I'll talk more about breathing and go on to voices next time. Until then, talk to you later, Internet.